You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
And thanks for pressing play on this episode of Two and Out with Travis Currah and Sheldon Jones as we wrap up week 17 of the 2024 CFL season. Each team has 3 or 4 games left, and then the road to the Grey Cup officially gets underway. Let's start talking about week 17 with Winnipeg absolutely walking all over the Edmonton Elks, and it did look like it was going to start okay for Edmonton. There was the Kenny Lawler fumble, non-fumble, Luchez Purifoy that got returned to the house, but upon further review, it ended up being overturned. And then a few plays later, Zach Collaros hits Nick Dembski for a 60-yard touchdown, and the Bombers were off to the races, 55-27 the final. But what a turn of events on that first possession that really took the wind out of Edmonton's sails from the start. Yeah, and like if that would have counted, that would have been like the perfect start for them. But it didn't. And, I think it was the right call. Like, it was pretty bang bang. You had to slow it down super, even if it was close. And so you don't want those calls changing because of that. So I was fine with the call there. But yeah, it just, as soon as that happened, Winnipeg just got the crowd back into it and they scored the touchdown right away. And then, 17-0 after the first quarter, I think. And then I turn the champs. I mean, yeah, Winnipeg's one of those teams where, especially if they're at home, I haven't seen, anybody get down 17, 21 points or whatever it is at Princess Auto Stadium and be able to come back. That is just the hole that you do not want to be in. It's usually the Bombers who are down like 10 or 15 points and then they come back and win. It's nuts. It's arguably top 1-2 home advantages in the league there, right? So you can't start a game like that and expect to win, which sucks because it's not official, but it effectively eliminates Edmonton from the playoffs, because I think on the CFL predictor, I think it shows Saskatchewan was like a 98% percentage to make the playoffs now, and I think the Elks are like 2%. So it would take a miracle for them to get in, and well, I guess this is the year for something like that to possibly happen, so maybe I shouldn't talk about it. Well, how things change, it was just 3 or 4 weeks ago when Edmonton was the team that you didn't want to play, but Winnipeg was also one of the teams that you didn't want to play, and Edmonton ran into them and really just, I think, brought an end to that hot streak. Now, there's still a couple teams you don't want to play. One of them is the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and they're going to need a miracle and some help to get into the playoffs themselves, but we will get to that in a little bit here. Zach Collaros turns his season around in one game. Like he had 5 more picks than touchdowns heading into this game. Now he's got 1 more touchdown than interceptions on the year. 21 of 26, 432 yards, 6 touchdowns. Now, look, a lot of it was the Elks just playing Elks football, being unable to tackle, unable to bring guys down. And hey, when Brady Oliveira, that receiving touchdown that he had, I think it was in the second quarter, that 33-yarder, 31 of them yak, and they had every opportunity to bring them down, but now the Bombers are rolling, and this is why they've been in the Grey Cup for the last 4 years. They have clinched home field, and it's really close for the road to Vancouver in the West, going through Winnipeg again. And if I'm the other teams in the West, I'm not feeling so well. You can't go in thinking I'm going to lose, but again, the road to the Grey Cup going through Winnipeg, and yep, that's tough. And odds are Winnipeg is probably going to be representing the West again. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. That's what it's kind of looking like, though. Yeah, and every other team has the deck stacked against them when they go there in the playoffs. It's
It's crazy. You talk about Collaros turning a season around within one game. Pretty much Brady Oliveira has done the same thing in the last 2 or 3 games because he's finally hit the end zone multiple times now. And, you know, he's right back in the race. Both of them, I guess, you could be considered back into the race for the MOP because now it's a tough choice in Winnipeg. I think before this game, when Zach got these 6 touchdowns, I think Brady would probably be a lock for the pick for the team pick. But now you can't really ignore Zach. So that's going to be quite interesting there. Uh, they're just hitting their stride at the right time, kind of like they always do. And it's just, yeah, it just kind of seems like fate and just what we're expected. And now it's up to the other teams to see if they can try to knock the king off the castle.
Now, I know officially Winnipeg will need to win 1 or 2 more to officially have the West Final in their house. And we talk about the MOP race. It's still not clinched by anyone, really. But, and I also don't think Winnipeg plays this way. I don't think they're going to keep Zach in just to, clinch an MOP for him. But who does Winnipeg play coming up? Well, he's going to his old stomping grounds of Hamilton. So we're going to see the veteran gunslingers going at it, Collaros and Mitchell, which I'm really looking forward to. But I think those guys are going to want to try to outduel each other on Friday Night Football. But a couple more performances like that, I mean, it could happen. And then all of a sudden, Zach leads the charge for MOP. I don't know if it's going to go that way, but in such a strange year, it almost seems like every game is going to matter towards that race. I didn't get to watch the game until later. My wife an Edmonton Elks fan, so she watched it before me, and she said there was one player on Winnipeg that was just pissing me off with the catches he was making, and then all I said was, the king? And she said, yeah. And this is crazy because at halftime, Winnipeg's up like 34-6. But Lawler's big plays came in the second half. The one diving catch was insane with the one hand, and then he makes another solid one in the end zone, making sure to get the foot down. Like they were just firing on all cylinders. This is the offense that I think we had expected to see right from week 1, and they're doing it, at the end of September, the beginning of October, exactly what you want to see from your team. Were you surprised, Sheldon, that Edmonton didn't put Trey in for any series at all?
Yes and no. I surprised because obviously the game was out of reach, and I think once that happens, kind of your pregame plans kind of go out the window, and you might want to see what somebody else can do. But at the same time, Trey hasn't. I don't know. Like it's so bizarre the way that they're deciding to do this. Like 1 week somebody's a starter, 1 week the other guy's a starter, and they say he's going to be the starter for the rest of the season, and then that changes. And so I don't know. It's to me it was strange he didn't get in there, but at the same time it just seemed like that's the night that was going all Winnipeg's way. And so are you going to throw the guy to the fire and have him throw another 2 or 3 picks on top of the 4 or 5 picks he threw the game before? So maybe they just realized that Winnipeg kind of had their number and they didn't want to put any more cards out on the table, maybe. But they could have got the third stringer in there if that was the real case. I don't know.
Yeah, they were able to move the ball on the ground. I mean, Justin Rankin, he had 109 yards. Kevin Brown had 44 yards on 5 carries. So they are the first team since the 1966 teams from Edmonton and Hamilton to have 3 rushers over 500 yards, which is actually pretty impressive.
It is.
They did lose a fumble to the Bombers. And, when you're giving up touchdowns when you're supposed to be on the field, that doesn't help. One of those lateral passes behind the line of scrimmage to Rankin that ended up on the carpet and ended up in the end zone. But yeah, it was just all Bombers, and Zach was completely on. He probably could have had 7 touchdowns, actually. But Dembski has 2. 117 yards. One was a big one, and then one was, really, Niles Morgan, one of the top tacklers in the league, got undressed by Nick Dembski. We got Carrick Wheatfall with a big 61-yard touchdown himself. Kenny the King, 130 yards. It was just an absolute clinic from the Bombers right from the opening kickoff, and that was it. Just totally got away, putting up 55 points on the board. Hardly any penalties in this one. 4 combined penalties. I know last week we were talking about interceptions being down, and games like this are just going to continue bringing down that average. But the second half of the Friday night doubleheader was a very entertaining game, especially in the second half. The BC Lions fall to the Hamilton Tiger Cats 32-29 in overtime. And the Lions, they had a 16-0 lead at halftime. The Ticats offense was not getting it done. Bo was a little bit off in the first half. I don't know if it's the late start. I don't know what it was. Things completely changed in the second half. But the Lions certainly had an opportunity to put the Ticats away. And that's been the story of the past little while here, because we've seen it. The Lions get off to a quick start, and they did here. Their first drive ended up in the end zone. Nathan Rourke rushing 7 yards to put the Lions in the lead. And then they were up 10-0 a couple possessions later. And I don't think we can blame Rourke or the Lions offense for this one. And the way he's playing, he's trying to put the team, on his shoulders. He's not afraid of contact. He's really playing physical, which I don't know if you always want to see your quarterback doing that. But yeah, in the second half, it was one of those tales of two halves in this one.
Yeah, it was interesting because right out of the gate, Bo looked really good because he had a deep shot that went down the field, and if it wasn't dropped, like that would have been just the perfect way for them to start, because it was a perfect pass, and that would have put them right in the scoring position. And then after that, he kind of seemed like his accuracy was off a little bit, so maybe that rattled him. But he was wearing the overalls, guys. That's what it is right now. And he was wearing the overalls, and yada yada yada. You know what happened.
Oh yeah, I think that was the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to get to that. Like I don't know if that one changed the course of the game, but poor Flintoft, he can't keep the ball. But the accuracy of this one, I don't know how it didn't bounce out of there. Okay.
Who knows? It must have hit something, bounced back, and then just rested there. Like,
I love, he goes, I can't say any, Tom Valesi, the official in this one, Stefan Flintoff, the previous 2 times he had a punt hit the scoreboard in BC Place. Ben Major was the official. This time, the ball doesn't come down. It doesn't land. And Tom Valesi basically says, I can't say any more than what Ben has already said. Yada, yada, yada. We'll redo the play. That was one of the best things I've heard an official say at a CFL game.
Yeah, huge pop. It was like I was busting a gut laughing. It was like how I didn't think anyone could top what Ben said, but this certainly did. And I just want it to happen in Grey Cup when we're there.
It could happen.
It could happen.
It totally could. Now, the third quarter starts, and the Ticats move down the field, and Greg Bell gets that 13-yard touchdown. All of a sudden, they're only down 10, and the Lions could not stop Bo Levi Mitchell, and that is a complete, probably under exaggeration here. He just absolutely tore them apart. He got on a roll, and
it's like 24 or 25 at some point, I think.
Yeah, so he goes 18 for 18. And he was probably closing in on a CFL record. He probably would have had it, but the fullback James Tuck drops one later in the game and takes the record away. But Bo, he completed passes to 10 different receivers. Well, actually, he ended up catching a 2-point conversion as well. 34 of 40. 2 touchdowns, an interception, 315 yards. The interception in the first half, but something at halftime totally clicked, and the Ticats end up coming back in this game. This is another one where I think the Ticats are expected to lose. They're traveling across country. The Lions off the bye, and the BC defense. And I know Hamilton is great at protecting the quarterback. Bo did get sacked 3 times, but it just didn't seem to have an effect. Sometimes, I guess, sacks come in different times where they just kill the momentum of your team and kill a drive and things like that. But the way Hamilton's able to create a pocket for Bo and how confident he was looking, some of the places he was putting the ball. Once he gets this looks like the Bo that of 10 years ago. I mean, it's crazy to watch.
Yeah, it's incredible. There's no doubt that there's anything wrong with his shoulder anymore. That was dogging him for a few years. He has all of that strength back. He's able to pick people off, and it's just like he's seeing the field differently. And maybe I don't know what the motivation is. Maybe he is playing to play somewhere else next year. Maybe he's kind of got that FU attitude to how he was benched early in the season. Whatever it is, just keep it going, because it's, miracles can happen, and if they continue to win, then magic might happen here.
Yeah, they're going to need some help. Although I was looking at the standings here, like the Lions are 7-8, the Ticats are 6-9.
Nice.
So then, yeah, I thought I could power through the chuckle, but I couldn't. Like, seriously, the East crossover to the West is still in play.
Yeah.
However, we would need Calgary to beat BC, which I guess is not out of the realm of possibility if the Lions defense is going to look like that. I mean, I don't know. Could Jake have a good game coming off the bye and do that and play role of spoiler, because he's going to want to be playing for a position somewhere next year as well. But the Lions, they just couldn't bring that intensity in the second half, and the Ticats came all the way back. So they take the lead with about a minute left in the fourth quarter. And what a beautiful play design that was on the 2-point conversion. Tim White completing it to Bo Mitchell on that one. And actually, a few plays earlier, Tim White was in double coverage, and the place that Bo put the ball, I don't know. The guy's on absolute fire right now. But you can see Nathan Rourke on the sideline saying, hey, we can bring this team back in it. And yes, they did kick a field goal to tie it and send it to overtime. There was a part of me that thought BC 3rd and 2 or 3rd and a long one. Come on, go for it. But they had to kick that 11-yard field goal to send it to overtime. What were you thinking at that point?
I was just thinking that, if it was me, I would have wanted them to go for it. But at the same time, I understand that the way that they were playing in that second half and the way that Hamilton's momentum was, you can't risk getting stuff there and then losing the game like that. So in that situation, when you can kick a field goal to tie, you got to take the tie there. So I understand. I I understand why they did it, but
I guess if it was
I'm
a little
gambler.
bit shorter. I like that
honestly,
risk.
I don't even know if
Yeah.
even if it was 3rd and inches. I still think at that you can't. There's a lot of things. You could have a fumble. You could have a
Yeah.
guy slip on a banana peel. Like I just think you have to live to play another down, and then you just kick the field goal.
So then the first mini game, the BC Lions kick a field goal. And then, well, you know what happens. The Ticats score that touchdown. I guess it's not without a little bit of controversy here. 2nd and 4. The pass is ruled incomplete when Bo tried to hit Brendan O'Leary orange. And then they have to challenge for that pass interference. Glenn Suter thought that maybe it wasn't enough to...
He's the only person in the CFL fans who thought that.
However, I've seen stupid things where it's not called pass interference and it's not clear and obvious. And
I know, but the guy was literally like this. Like you could see
he held him down as he tried to jump. He might have been able to make a better jump at it. I thought it was interference. I'm just saying that there were other examples where I thought it was too, you know.
I hear you. It's just like Glenn Suter he needs to get on these, like it's like he gets on these hills and he's gonna die on them, even if like something comes out that can show, like every view of it you could just see, and even Farhan, like he's just like, Glenn, like he's holding. That's a
well,
penalty.
there was a
like,
moment where it was like the very last replay and Glenn paused and I think he saw the hand grabbing the collar and he's like, well, I'm committed. I'm just going with
I guess
it.
in that sense, at least he admitted it. It's just like it just for whatever reason, like if he's got a tough time, and a lot of these guys, maybe they have a tough time saying, oh, maybe I didn't see it correct. Like, but all you have to see is, oh, I guess I'm wrong. Like,
yeah,
he's not going to lose his job over saying, oh, I guess I'm wrong. But when you continue to be like, no, that's not enough. When you're a defensive player to start with, of course you're going to say that's not holding because you're a defensive guy. But I usually don't like to harp on Glenn, but in my opinion, Glenn's had a rough like back half of the season here. Like it's getting tough for me not to. Not saying I could do it any better, but like
hey, a lot of times
when you have Paul Lapalisse there.
And when we had him on the show, there's a lot of eye-opening moments. A lot of times these guys are trusting the guys in their ear too.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a lot that goes into it. So yeah, it's tough, and sometimes
tough. I agree.
Sometimes the replay not only makes the officials look foolish, but sometimes it can make anybody else covering the game look foolish. I think it took me a few angles to see the hand on the collar, but once you saw it, it was like, I think that one. But that's a tough one to take, and I felt bad. I think Kent was the DB, and he's the one that actually picked off Bo in the first half. So, kind of the hero at that moment. And then at the end, the camera, sees him on the bench, and Bo was surgical of the BC Lions defense in the second half, and it's back to the drawing board for them as the Ticats' playoff hopes do stay alive for another week. The Saturday doubleheader in Regina as the Roughriders get a 29-16 victory over the Ottawa REDBLACKS. This 1:00 kickoff, brother. Whew. So,
yes, sir, brother.
Here's my Saturday. I go to bed at 20 after 10 or something Friday night, which I'll tell you what is about 8 hours earlier than my life has been over the past 3 years. But I set my alarm for 2:57. I had the coffee start brewing at 2:51. I poured the coffee. I hit the highway to Regina, and I made it there, for whatever it was, 20 after 11. Some great people in the Rough Rider ticket office got us some sideline passes, and we ran into some great fans. Marcia is a fan of the show. We got to meet her beforehand, and then going down to the sideline, Sue Bates and Barry making the trip all the way from Ontario. She's held season tickets since the new stadium has opened and sat in her seat twice. The dedication of her is pretty awesome. So running into some very cool folks. And then after the first quarter, I was recognized as the SGI Safe Ride champion. So they recognized my dedication of being a season ticket holder in Regina for 12 years and making the 16-hour round trip on a regular basis. So gave me the custom jersey and the license plate, and had my Saxtel Maxtron moment, Sheldon.
Sure did.
I'm still flying high off of that one. I had a picture of my brother up there, me and my wife, and me and my dad. And my brother got a text saying, "Hey, I just saw your ugly mug on the screen." So yeah, it was pretty cool, and it was a fun game to get to, man.
Yeah, it was. It turned out to be a really fun game to watch, and get back up in the Havana upgraded section with the free pop and chips. So didn't have to feel like one of the poors like we did at Labor Day, but I was glad to be back up there. But no, it turned out to be a really fun game, almost without incident.
Almost.
As a Rider fan.
Almost. Man. And it did start rough. I will say, like, the first half, the Riders had opportunity after opportunity to put up points, and they did on the foot of Brett Lother, who ends up going 7 for 7 in this one. There was a couple good kicker performances in week 17 in the CFL, but Jeremiah Masoli ended up getting picked off 3 times, and the Riders were in good field position many times, including a big missed field goal return by Mario Alford. Takes it 74 yards, and if I remember correctly, that one didn't end in 6 points for the Riders either. So that's been something that they're going to need to figure out down the stretch here, because Rock Armstead, coming off that 200-yard performance a week ago, he had 10 carries for 32 yards before leaving this game in a sling. But we do know, and I think we did expect, Ottawa's a lot harder to run against than Calgary has proven this season. And both secondaries were very, very physical. And I think what Ottawa brought to the table was putting some fear into the Rough Rider receivers. And yeah, there were a few moments in the first half where, with Kean Schaefer-Baker getting smashed, and what happened to Sean Bain Jr. From Money Hunter, there was reason for the Rider receivers to be a bit nervous and hear footsteps coming.
Yeah, and it definitely it definitely resulted in some drops, and just not being able to finish the drives. When you get interceptions or huge missed field goal returns and you can't turn those into touchdowns, usually that's an incentive that you're not going to win the game. So luckily they still were able to win the game, but like you said, going forward, they need to find a way to, once they get to that red zone or close to that green zone, I guess, to put the ball in the end zone more often than not, because yeah, it's great to have Brett Lowther back and kicking 7 field goals after, he had that pretty bad game earlier in the season. But in the playoffs, field goals aren't going to win you the games. You're going to need touchdowns, especially in the West when, like we said before, odds on, one way or another, the Riders are going to have to go through Winnipeg to get to the Grey Cup. So while it's nice to not have... not be on a 7-game losing streak and to be on a 2-game winning streak, that's nice as a Rider fan. It's just, there's definitely still work to do.
Yep, there is work to do there. They didn't get on the board with a touchdown until the second half from a name that, well, we didn't expect. But first, I do want to talk about some of the Money Hunter plays in the first half, because Hey, that was a clean hit. I thought on Kean Schaefer-Baker forcing the incompletion there. What a thunderous hit. It was good to see KSB to get back into the game. Upon watching the next series in slow motion, it did look like Money Hunter was kind of sliding to hopefully make the interception, and Sean Payne Jr., well, and we didn't talk about it in the BC Hamilton game. Both kind of similar results where Shamar Bridges takes a low hit. He ends up, I think, being able to return to the game. But yeah, the knee, those low hits, like the defense, they don't have much left where the advantage lies with the defense. The low hits still remain in the game. I feel like they're probably going to try to get rid of those, making it even harder on defenders to make plays because, well, they're taught, go low. You tackle these guys high, they're probably going to be able to break the tackle. But Sean Payne Jr., definitely unfortunate to see that. You might call it reckless. I wouldn't call it dirty. It did look like he was trying to play the ball. He didn't target the leg. At least that's how I saw it from Money Hunter.
Yeah, I think the key on the replay is his hands are down like this. So it does look like he is going for the ball. If his hands were up like this and he was just going for the hit, then I could see a case for.
It did look like it was going to be overthrown, at least from the stands, and Sean Payne made a last second lunge at it.
Yeah, and it's just you hate to see it. You hate to see anyone go down with an injury, and they got him off the field pretty quickly, but then he got carted to the dressing room after that. So not good. I know the Riders are looking forward to seeing some more players come back off the 6-game injury list, but they potentially could have added a couple more this game to it. So that's not ideal.
Now, the Roughriders' first major of the game, I think Sheldon came from a surprising source. It was number 30, Thomas Bertrand Houdon, who ends up rushing for 26 yards to the house. At that point, it did put the Riders up 21-6 before the 2-point conversion, and Bertrand Houdon, quite the juke, and undressed Damon Webb without much space to make that move. What a move it was. And I don't know, is it looking like, I know with Armstead in a sling, I don't know, is Bertrand Houdon going to be the starter for the next Rough Rider game, or Frankie Hickson back on the roster?
I think we're more likely to see Frankie Hickson, just because I think Thomas Bertrand Houdon is, he had a really good game, but I'm not sure if he's ready to be the number one feature back there. But we have Frankie, according to practice reports, he's been healthy and practicing in full, and he's been healthy scratches. So he should be able to slot right back in there. I was talking with AJ Ouellette before the game as we had our passes there, and he said that he's hoping to be back for the BC game. So we'll see what happens there. He said his rehab is progressing pretty good. But Frankie and Armstead are kind of the same kind of back. So hopefully Frankie can get back in there, and he's going to have a little bit of fire under his butt because he sees that these two other guys have had these performances, and he's going to want to try to get in there and save his job, right?
So Jeremiah Masoli sees Khalil Pimpleton for an 11-yard touchdown late in the fourth quarter, about 2 minutes left. That was Ottawa's first score. They try to go for the onside kick. It wasn't the best attempt there. So then the Riders put a field goal on the board, 29-16, the score at that point. And then we have another controversial play where Khalil Pimpleton makes the catch, and then Deontay Williams basically gives him a pile driver into the ground, uses his knee to get leverage to pick him up and drop him on his head. 6 seconds left on the clock. I mean, just unnecessary and silly. That's the best way I can describe that one. I do not blame Dominic Rhymes for sprinting across the field and being fired up after that play. Man, that was just stupid. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, no, I actually appreciate him doing that because you got to stand up for your teammates when something stupid happens. There's no excuse. I've seen people saying that he should be kicked out of the league for that. Let's pump the brakes. This guy hasn't done this before. But, I think he does deserve a suspension, probably a game suspension here because it was reckless. It was stupid.
Dangerous.
I don't.
Dropping a guy in his
Dangerous.
head,
Yeah. I don't want to say the guy intended to injure him, but when you do something like that, how do you not injure somebody?
Yeah.
It kind of looked as soon as it happened, he kind of realized well, what did I do? It looked to me like his hands were kind of trying to go like this, but then he had everyone coming at him. But I think as I said earlier with the hit on Big Hill to Patterson earlier in this season on this show, in the end, Pimpleton was able to get up and hopefully, Williams can learn from this. But I think he does deserve to get a suspension and a fine. We'll see what happens in the supplemental discipline. But it'd be nice if the CFL came out with it pretty early and got it out of the way instead of, having Twitter being like, oh, when's he going to get suspended for the next 4 days. But it just sucks being a Rider fan and having another Rider fan do something stupid, or Rider player do something stupid, and it's getting old. But again, I'm just glad that Pimpleton wasn't injured that we know of. He got back up and kind of it even looked like he was trying to pull his players back, and it didn't look like he was trying to go after Williams too. So hopefully, and then Coach May said after the game that it was stupid and that he's going to talk to him, and he talked to Coach Dice and said that that's not how Riders play and all that stuff. So hopefully Williams has a little bit of a break here and learns about what he does and then can come back and never do something as stupid as that again.
And I'm sure that Rhymes is probably going to get fined too, but
he probably deserves a fine, but that's one of those fines that I'm sure the team is going to pay for, or the players are going to pool in, because that's a fine for sticking up for your buddies and your brothers. So I would want my player to do that 9 times out of 9.
Trevor Harris goes 27 of 36 for 315 yards. Thomas Bertrand-Houdon, the leading rusher for the Riders, 9 carries, 72 yards. The leading receiver, Keyshawn Johnson, 6 catches, 101 yards, including a big 53-yarder. Sam Emelis, 7 catches for 63 yards. But the rookie, Duncan Busby, having a big game for the Riders as well. He gets his start with Adjo being injured here. 7 catches, 92 yards from the rookie. That's a pretty darn good performance from him.
It's him, it's DDP. It's DDB.
I love it. And then Williams gave Pimpleton a DDB at the end of the game.
Yes, he did. Wrestling is everything. Wrestling is life. No, it was great to see Dale Duncan Busby get that, have that performance. It just shows that the Riders have a next man up mentality, and they've been tested with that all year, and it seems like it's going to continue because Sean Bain looks to be out, so they're going to need to get another guy off the practice roster, whether it's maybe giving another shot to Gareth Stearns or seeing what Roboselli can do, or I don't know if Derek Myers is close to being back or not, but like I said, it's next man up, and Trevor has shown that he's not afraid to give these new guys a chance when they get in there.
Khalil Pimpleton in his return to the lineup, 6 catches, 45 yards, and a touchdown. But the leading receiver for the Red Blacks, Justin Hardy, 5 catches, 111 yards, including a 41-yarder where he undressed a few Rider defenders there. Kalen Leyburn for the Red Blacks, 8 carries, 42 yards, and Jeremiah Masoli, 26 of 36 and a touchdown, but the 3 interceptions, even though that the Riders were not able to really capitalize and score touchdowns there. It still gave the Riders more of hey, every running play makes a difference, and it was probably big towards Hudon being able to break the tackles and gain the yards that he was able to later in the game. Leading tackler was Amari Henderson for the Riders with 6 tackles there. And then for the Red Blacks, Bennett Williams with 5 tackles and CJ Colden with 7 tackles, 1 forced fumble and 2 knockdowns for the Ottawa Red Blacks. But as we talk about the Red Blacks, it looks like they were neck and neck with Montreal, and now they have started to struggle a little bit here. The Argos are only 1 point behind the Red Blacks for the right to host the Eastern semifinal. The Red Blacks have certainly fallen off as the season has gone on here. They're now on bye, but they come back and they will be playing the Montreal Alouettes on Thanksgiving. An Alouette team that has already clinched the East Division. Of course, they're going to want to win for their home fans on Thanksgiving, but the Red Blacks are a team that they need to figure some things out as well. It might come down to them and the Ticats if they're not able to turn this ship around.
Yeah. I guess luckily they built up a cushion that's kind of helped them a little bit here in this little bit of a slide they're on, but it doesn't seem anything they do is kind of going right. So they need to pull it around right away.
Ottawa's remaining games are in Montreal, in Toronto, and home to the Ticats for the final game of the regular season. So hopefully they can take this opportunity while they're off to get some guys healthy, maybe have Drew Brown back in there and see what they're able to do when they get back out there. But hey, 6-1-1 at home, 2-5 on the road. And that's not uncommon across the CFL. The only team above 500 on the road are the Montreal Alouettes at 6-1-1. The final game of Week 17 had the Toronto Argonauts beating the Montreal Alouettes 37-31 in this game. Now, I said last week that the Alouettes, they're not the best at limiting teams from the run. And that's what the Argos did right from the start. They had the ball for over 35 minutes in this game, and you can tell just by looking at Kadeem Carey's jersey that they were running the ball early and often. He had, I gotta zoom in, that's 6.9 yards a carry for Kadeem Carey.
Nice.
13 carries, 90 yards, and a touchdown for him. Look, I'm sure that the soccer fans may have been upset watching the turf during this Alouettes-Argos game, but Kadeem Carey earned every stain on that jersey. I love seeing that stuff.
Yeah, and it was like wrecked after the first quarter. Like he was ripped, his number was like coming off. Like you could tell he put in the work for those yards. Yeah,
he totally deserved it. Even Deontay McMahon here, 5 carries, 67 yards, and a touchdown. Daniel Adeboboye had a 26-yarder, 8 carries, 39 yards there. What kept the Alouettes in this game was the fact they had a big special teams touchdown from James Letcher Jr. We talk about the duel in this one between two of the top returners in the league, being Janarian Grant and James Letcher Jr. Now, the Alouettes kept Janarian Grant out of this game for the most part, but James Letcher Jr. had a 100-yard punt return touchdown to keep the Alouettes in this one. But on the same token, Dominic Davis, a couple of those short yardage plays early in the game, he ended up losing a fumble. And then was it the first drive for the Alouettes that the Argos stopped it? It just felt in the first half that the Argos were overmatching the Alouettes physically. And the Alouettes aren't winning games the same way they were early in the season. Seems like that momentum is starting to slow down a little bit for them. And even if they do have home field in the playoffs, the horns are going to be going crazy. I don't know. I don't feel so good for a team standing in the way of the Argos either. Once they get physically rolling, they're going to be tough to beat.
Yeah, and they actually went back to that formula of running, like using the running game instead of having Chad Kelly throw the ball like 50 times like he had been the past couple games. When you have that three-headed monster at your disposal, you need to use it, and they did. And so I think, if Toronto's smart, which obviously their coaching staff is smart, they'll continue to do this, and it's going to be up to the other team's defensive coaches to try to be able to stop it.
Yeah, and we know the linebackers in Montreal are great, but for some reason teams have been able to open up the holes on their D-line, and I don't know if that's being without Sean Lemon at one of the ends or anything like that, but teams are certainly able to move the ground effectively on them, and that goes without saying. 234 rushing yards for the Argos in this game, and they were able for the most part to, Mackay Polk had a 77-yard touchdown in this one, quietly having, I think, a pretty darn good season for the Argos. Oh no, he was marked down at the 7 or something. It wasn't a touchdown, but that 77-yard play, yeah,
it was still a big play. Touchdown.
When they're running the ball like that and they're able to throw it over the top, it's tough for any defense to predict what's going to happen.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and like you said, he's quietly kind of showed that he's one of those guys that Chad Kelly can trust to catch the ball when he throws it his way, and it's just another option for them to have.
In 14 games for Mackay Polk, he has 716 yards and 4 touchdowns, but 3 100-yard games in his past 4 games. So he's one of the hottest receivers in the CFL. Against the Owls, 103 yards. Against the Lions, 116. He had 110 against the REDBLACKS and only 42 against the Ticats, but he did add a touchdown to his stat line in that one. So Mackay Polk quietly, I think, having a pretty darn good season for the Toronto Argonauts. Getting back into the lineup was Dejon Brissett for the Argos, a welcome Canadian addition to that team. He only had the 1 catch for 7 yards, but it was also a bizarre play where Chad Kelly was basically sacked and just handed it off to him. But the Argos just getting it done on the leg of Lirim Hajrullahu. A Argos franchise record, 8 field goals on 8 attempts. That's a team that's 150 years old. So between Brett Lothar and Lirim Hajrullahu, 15 for 15 in week 17.
Yeah, I remember leaving the game and I was like, well, there's no doubt that Brett Lothar is going to be the special teams player of the week. And then, Lirim was like, hold my beer. Great performance, but again, it's not really something you want. You don't want your team to be kicking 8 field goals, but in both cases, both the teams that had all those field goals won the game, so I guess it doesn't really matter.
Well, and 5 of those field goals came from the red zone. I'm looking at the stat sheet here. The Argos only punted 3 times. There was the interception in the second quarter, but other than that, when you're getting points on every darn possession almost, I guess you'll take the points you can get. You would prefer 6s, but if you're going to get 24 points off of your kicker's leg, that's pretty wild. For the Owls, Cody Fajardo, 20 of 29 with 2 touchdowns, an interception, 225 yards. That's kind of a game manager game from Cody. Not really the big play from the offense, though. Although Cole Speaker, this guy, he makes big-time catches. He makes tough catches. 3 catches, 99 yards, including that 39-yard touchdown. Reggie White Jr. had 40 yards in this one. And Keon Julian Grant also had 40 yards in this game. But the Owls offense not really scoring at will right now. Now they did take advantage from the good field possession off of the Deontay Ruffin touchdown. Their special team scored, so they're still very balanced. But this was the first time that Chad Kelly played the Alouettes at BMO since last year's East Final. And much like Winnipeg in the West, the Argos are going to have to overcome the Alouettes in the playoffs. And do you think maybe the Owls took the foot off the gas a little bit? Playing a little simpler. They knew going into this one that they had clinched the East Final. Still, you want to not have the rust building up. You want to, stay loose and have those important reps. But this game clearly did mean a lot more to Toronto than it did Montreal.
Yeah, I don't think any team wants to go out there and not give 100%, but at the same time, I think maybe the play calling and maybe some of the schemes were held back, maybe just to try to maybe get Toronto feeling a little bit more comfortable, and then they can bust out, a dribble kick here or there, or a flea flicker, because they like to do the flea flicker too. But it did seem like a vanilla game plan from them, and like we said, they've clinched. So I don't think they want to go into the playoffs losing 3 of the last 4 or anything like that. So I do think that they need to find a way to be able to win, maybe even with the vanilla play calling that they might do down the stretch here. But I think Jason Moss has showed us in the past 2 seasons here that he knows what he's doing. So I wouldn't be too worried if I was an Owls fan right there.
Credit to the commentary team of Rod Smith, and I believe it was Dwayne Ford. They're talking about Jose Maltos being having the highest field goal percentage this year. Misses the kick.
That's classic when that happens.
Yeah, that's the jinx if we've ever seen it come into play. That was pretty funny. And hey, these teams are going to be physical. You saw the hit that Wynton McManus delivered to Cody Fajardo after the play. I think that one was applied on the kickoff, but there's a good chance that these teams play in the playoffs. Although somebody's going to need to beat Montreal if they do want to get to the Grey Cup. How did your fantasy lineup look? I'll admit, I'm a very last minute guy. Sometimes when there's a 6:30 game and the kickoff doesn't start until 6:37, I believe that 7 minutes in between the start time and the kickoff, I should be able to make a fantasy lineup. But anyway, I was shut out of the Winnipeg Edmonton game, so I wasn't able to. I have to feel like if you had Zach Collaros as your quarterback and your captain, he might have given you 100 points or something crazy like that. But I only had 81 points on the week. Sheldon?
Yeah, I had 128, so not bad. Nathan Work still got me 50 points. So
wow.
Yeah, so I'll take it, but I didn't make the playoffs in my league, so it doesn't matter anymore.
It's been one of those years, man. It's been one of those years, but the football has been unpredictable and exciting. Week 18 of the CFL season is on the way. Friday Night Football has the Bombers in Hamilton to take on the Ticats. Who thought that, the quarterback matchup of Collaros and Mitchell at this point of the season would be one of the most intriguing? But here we are. They're still getting it done out there. The BC Lions, they're pretty much in must-win territory, I would say, against the Calgary Stampeders in the second half of that Friday nighter. And then on Saturday, the Edmonton Elks hosting the Saskatchewan Roughriders. It's going to be Hollywood night in Edmonton. They're saying they're going to have the biggest firework display in Double E football history after the game. So,
just like the game last week when there was in Calgary when they got fireworks after the Riders beat them?
Well, my wife said, well, hey, for the past 5 years, I got a stockpile of fireworks that they can set off. And then she says, well, at least the Rider fans will stay and catch the firework display. But that's going to be Saturday. Must-win territory for, I think, both teams. The Riders want to have a home playoff game, and the Edmonton Elks want to stay alive. They could still catch BC. It is a possibility.
But if the Riders win, I think the Elks are eliminated, right?
I think
I believe so. That's how it works.
I think that would need a BC loss on Friday as well. I think.
Oh, okay.
Just because Edmonton does have the season series with the Lions.
Right.
So, well, then you got to factor in the Ticats into this equation.
Yep.
It's coming right down to the wire, man. You can rate, review, and subscribe to Two and Out on YouTube and your favorite podcatcher. You can go to the website, twoandout.ca, to find a link to the merch store, to the Patreon, and yada, yada, yada. I'm Travis Currah. He's Sheldon Jones. We'll get you ready for Week 18 in the CFL later this week.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.